Occult Tools number 2, visualization or imagination. So having established a grounding of a calm mind in our previous episode of Occult Tools, we now move on to what I see as the next most important tool for any novice occultist, that being visualization or imagination. I wanted to introduce this with a quote from Alan Moore from his Moon and Serpent Bumper Book of Magic that he wrote with his friend Steve Moore, no relation. Might it be useful, without contravening any laws of common sense or physics, to suggest that the domains of mind and matter are both real, but in completely different ways? Isn't it possible that all the extraordinary claims made on behalf of magic are entirely credible, providing that one understands the magic to be taking place nowhere save the mind? Couldn't consciousness, like the material world about us, be seen as a kind of space or landscape, one obeying wildly different laws to those which rule the physical domain, while being in its own terms just as real as our material realm? In fact, in light of everything within the human world having originated in the mind, couldn't this interior and mental territory be described as possibly the more important of these two worlds, and to be exerting a far greater influence on the phenomena we call reality? Now, in the excellent Occult Exercises and Practices by Gareth Knight, which I have 2 copies of here, he goes into some more detail of specific practices that you could do to try and enhance and grow your imaginative and visualizationary skills. He states that the calm mind meditation practices that we established in the last episode should be taken for granted as a sort of grounding and practice that the occultist is undertaking before doing anything, really. This being the fourfold breath and a general sort of bodily awareness meditation practice that you would find in most meditation practices, I would say. So one exercise is to focus on an object for 10 minutes in your mind's eye, in your imagination. And he suggests starting off with something as simple as a tennis ball, or I suppose you could use an apple or anything that's sort of simple in shape and very, very familiar. So focusing on every aspect of it, trying to draw it visually in 3 dimensions in your mind. And then on the more complex end of the scale, he suggests visualizing a chessboard, placing all of the pieces in the right place, visualizing the texture of the material that the chessboard is made of, all the time dispelling distraction. He talks about how you should be able to do this sort of practice in any situation, really. Don't try and create in a situation where there are no distractions, because that's not really possible. There will always be something to distract you, whether it's internal or external. So just get better at practicing. And he underlines practice, practice, practice. It's called occult practices for a reason. These are things to repeat and hone and get better at. So yeah, don't try and find a perfect space. Just try and perfect your skill at focus, really. He also says that it would be useful to then dispel the object itself that is your focus, and instead focus on the nothingness that is left behind. And obviously we're going to come on to astral work in a later episode of the Occult Tools series, but he does say that all astral work is done by the imagination. So this skill as a foundational tool is really something that should be honed at this point. So then once you've done the objects, you should move on to environments. So take yourself on a really familiar walk. If you have a walk that you always go on when you go for a walk, or even just like you walk to a bus stop or to work or to a cafe, something that you are really familiar with every single aspect of it, you've done it 1,000 times, do that visualization practice. Take yourself on that walk, imagine every single element of it, even trying to bring in other senses other than the visual. And then once we've established that as something that has been practiced well, we then go on to take a detailed image that is like visually rich and seems to be a sort of space, and try and inhabit it. So he suggests taking a tarot card, because there's just so much richness to it. You know, there's so much in the card imagery itself. Step into it. What do you see? What appears to you? I would say you could also use a painting that you love, or that is very familiar to you, or that you have at hand, or a print, something that is symbolically and visually rich, that you can step into. That's the key element of it, stepping into this space using your imagination. Now, he says that there are 2 kinds of imagination that are at work in these practices. One is those that are willed by yourself. So you're thinking, I want to see a red apple, and you're trying to make your brain conjure that as a sort of muscle almost. And the other are those which are unwilled by yourself. So these would be things when you do that final stepping in practice, things that occur that are surprising and seem to be external from you, that fill your visualization, imagination space. These arise spontaneously. Now, before we finish, there was another relevant quote I found in a Dion Fortune text regarding clairvoyancy and how imagination functions within that, what she calls thought vision. I thought it was pertinent to this discussion on imagination and visualization. Clairvoyant faculty, which is latent in every human being and which is based on the utilization of the thought vision. This thought vision is exercised almost unconsciously by everyone in thinking of either a place, person or thing which they know well, immediately coincident with the thought, and the image springs before the mental sight, and it is but the conscious and voluntary development of this which is the basis of what is commonly called clairvoyance. So in our quotes that we looked at today, we have Gareth Knight saying that astral work, astral projection, astral travel is done using the imagination as the sort of function by which that works. And then we have clairvoyance here with Dion Fortune saying that clairvoyance is done through thought vision. So I think we can see how important the imagination and visualization element is to occult practice. That is occult tool number 2. So do check out number 1, and sooner, I hope, than the gap between number 1 and 2, I will have number 3, which will be manifestation, in which we will be covering different manifestation exercises and discussing the sort of place that manifestation has within the magical pantheon of tools. And then number 4, which I'm also looking forward to, is going to be divination. As you can see, I've finally got hold of a crystal ball, and I'm in the process of making some sort of runestone style objects as well, and have plenty of tarot cards to be working with. But yeah, look forward to that episode. That'll probably be a bit of a longer one, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.